Jake Thompson, a former soldier, chose to return to a peaceful life away from the haunting echoes of war he had endured. After the harrowing days on the battlefield, coming back to a tranquil environment where he could leisurely plant flowers and care for his dogs was his heartfelt desire. In this new land, the fresh air helped Jake rediscover the sense of freedom he had lost during his military service. In the early days, he quietly immersed himself in nature, feeling each cool breeze carry the scent of earth and blossoms. Life seemed perfect. The sound of birds singing and the whisper of the wind rustling through the trees was like a soothing melody lulling Jake into a peaceful slumber. But this tranquility did not last long. One day, his mailbox was filled with letters from the local Homeowners Association HOA correspondence that had now become an obsession for him. The first letter demanded changes to the design of the fence around his house and the relocation of gardening tools. They claimed that his design did not comply with the community's standards. Jake felt as though his privacy was being invaded, as if they wanted to control every minute detail of his life. He could not sit idly by, and frustration began to seep into every thought. The presence of the HOA loomed over Jake like a dark cloud casting a shadow over the sunlight in his new life. He felt as if he was being watched with every step he took, like an animal trapped in a cage. Every time he saw an HOA inspector appear, his heart raced, and a sense of unease invaded his mind. The letters multiplied, burying him under a barrage of outrageous regulations he could not fathom. Why should a man who merely desired to live in harmony with nature be forced to adhere to such absurdities? Jake began to study the HOA regulations, but the more he researched, the more bewildered he became. Were they trying to extend their power and control over the area? The mounting difficulties took a toll on Jake's mood. He decided he could not accept this reality. One bright morning, as the sun was just rising, he stood before the fence wall that the HOA had demanded he build, and he realized he had to do something. He could not let his life be imprisoned. Jake took the time to meet with his neighbors seeking support and uniting to stand against the HOA's unreasonable demands. Jake organized meetings with his neighbors where everyone could share their grievances. Community support began to form, creating a ripple in the stillness of an area long suppressed by the HOA's control. The atmosphere gradually shifted from suffocating to tense yet hopeful. People began to recognize that they needed to speak out, that they were no longer alone in this fight. Throughout this process, Jake witnessed a miracle. The neighbors he once merely nodded to, each morning now became reliable allies. They exchanged ideas, discussed citizens' rights, and collaboratively forged a plan for resistance. Short gatherings and park meetups helped to strengthen bonds among everyone. One day, as the sunlight filtered through the trees, Jake conceived a bold idea to organize a small protest to capture the attention of the local media and bloggers. He understood this was an opportunity for people to realize that they were not just victims of the HOA, but a strong community if they stood together. With this plan in motion, Jake felt a new fire ignite within him, a profound pride he had never experienced before. The day of the protest arrived with many neighbors participating handmade signs, conveying a powerful message about residents' rights. It felt as though the entire neighborhood was inhaling a new breath of life. The enthusiasm of the crowd attracted the attention of the community and media, with local newspapers reporting on their battle against the HOA. Jake's home address transitioned from mere residence to a symbol of resilience and solidarity. All these developments created a turning point. The HOA faced fierce backlash from the community, and Jake resolved he could not stop at gatherings and meetings. He decided to sue the HOA, elevating this struggle to a public confrontation. He gathered evidence of the HOA's vague and illegal actions and entered into a high-pressure legal battle. With a firm decision, Jake led his community into a fight not only to defend himself, but also to forge a brighter future for all. Amidst the hardships, he realized that human strength lies not just within the individual, but also in unity, love, and mutual support. Each step of this confrontation became not just Jake's battle, but that of the entire community, and this realization drew everyone closer together. Jake continually reinforced his determination and resilience. The early days of this struggle would be challenging, but he believed that with the power of unity, they would turn every obstacle into a victory. This journey not only imbued Jake with hope, but also reignited within him a strong belief in life, in the values of protecting that which he held most dear, his home and his community. Jake Thompson, a passionate former soldier, returned from the brutal battles with a simple desire to find peace in life. After being engulfed in a profound sense of loss, mourning the many cherished friends he had lost on the battlefield, he sought a safe haven to start anew. A place where he could tend to flowers and raise dogs, imagining his new land with its fresh air, vibrant blooms, and the cheerful singing of birds. Jake felt his heart swell with hope and happiness. Yet, just when he thought this peaceful life would last forever, the Homeowners Association HOA appeared like an unexpected storm, shattering his tranquility in an instant. The arrival of the HOA quickly became a significant challenge in Jake's life. On that fateful day when he received the first letter from them, frustration and discomfort surged within him. The letter demanded that he alter the design of the fence surrounding his home and move his gardening tools out of public view. For the first time in his life, Jake felt his privacy was being invaded. No longer was he a soldier on the battlefield. He was an ordinary man facing the regulations of an organization. He felt as though his entire life was being constricted and suffocated by the rigid rules of the HOA. This feeling arose not only from the request to change the fence, but also from the HOA's increasing presence in his daily life, shadowing him like a specter. Every time he ventured outside to tend to his garden, Jake felt the eyes of the HOA members watching him as if they were scrutinizing every move he made. This thought heightened his anxiety. Jake began to question whether he truly had the right to live in this home. Was it possible that the peaceful life he longed for could be distorted by an invisible organization enforcing their standards? The sense of being watched and out of control began to permeate his soul, bringing back painful memories from the battlefield more vividly than ever. Unable to tolerate the situation any longer, Jake decided to break his silence. He began to research the HOA's regulations, hoping to uncover loopholes to defend his rights. He spoke with some of his neighbors and realized they were facing similar issues. The sense of isolation seemed to dissipate as those around him were enduring the same struggles. They shared their stories and concerns, and from there a bold idea sparked in Jake's mind. Why not organize a meeting for everyone to discuss their rights concerning the HOA? Immediately, Jake set out to connect with his neighbors. He took time to design a flyer inviting everyone to attend an informational meeting. He spent a week preparing, clearly defining the meeting's objectives and gathering essential information to help everyone understand their rights. He invited them to his home, which he decorated to create a warm and welcoming atmosphere, ensuring a comfortable environment for discussions. The meeting was a success with many neighbors attending. Each person had their unique experiences with the HOA, ranging from unreasonable warning letters to confusing demands. Unity seemed to form almost instantly after a brief conversation, filling Jake with a renewed sense of hope. Together, they compiled a list of demands for the HOA, fostering a strong community mindset and a collective fighting spirit. However, not long after, the HOA retaliated by ramping up pressure through a barrage of threatening letters, continuing to send warnings to every household. Despite the mounting pressure, Jake's determination only grew stronger. He was no longer a lone warrior. He had become a leader, uniting his community toward a common goal. They became rebels, gradually, understanding that their power and authority would be reinforced when they stood together. Starting from small meetings, Jake planned a larger step, a small protest aimed at attracting public attention and media coverage. Never having imagined he would participate in a protest, Jake now felt it was the only option. With the support of his neighbors, they decided to organize a demonstration with a clear message. The right to live as a community is precious. They prepared banners, signs, and even brief press releases explaining the reasons for the protest. As the demonstration unfolded, inviting neighbors and friends to join in the strength and spirit of their community created an invigorating atmosphere. Images from the protest quickly spread on social media, capturing the attention of local news outlets. Reporters arrived with cameras to capture every moment, conveying their story to the broader community. The overwhelming support from the public empowered Jake and his compatriots, fueling their resolve. Thanks to the efforts from the protest, Jake amassed substantial evidence of the HOA's manipulation and violations of rights. With unyielding determination, he decided to invest time and energy into suing the HOA. The legal battle not only presented him with an opportunity to reclaim his rights, but also transformed it into a public discourse. Each passing day, he felt the backing of the community that he trusted would help one another overcome adversity. When the court finally rendered its decision joyous, news reached Jake and all his neighbors the court sided with them. The HOA was mandated to compensate and cease its unlawful actions. This victory was not just Jake's. It belonged to the entire community who had fought together to protect their rights. More than a regulation from the HOA, they had reaffirmed their right to live and their freedom. Now, with their newfound freedom, Jake believed it was time to create something memorable for the community. He decided to establish a freedom garden for everyone. More than just a piece of land for planting, the garden became a symbol of the strength of unity and community spirit. Jake invited all his neighbors to participate in building the garden, a space where they could come together, share resources, and foster relationships. With a blend of purpose and joy, the Freedom Garden became not only a place to nurture plants, but also a venue for cultivating friendships and strengthening community bonds. The celebration to honor Jake's return turned into a special occasion where all previous conflicts were resolved through love and unity. They transitioned from heated arguments to warm congratulations, enjoying delightful food and laughter echoing through the air. Jake knew that through all he had experienced, he had proven the immense power of a community. They had stood together, supported one another, and ultimately triumphed in this battle. Their story held significance not just for Jake, but for anyone feeling isolated and vulnerable in the face of life's challenges. Each of them learned that together no barrier could prevent them from achieving their dreams. Jake found true happiness not just in rebuilding his home, but also in the relationships around him. He discovered the meaning of living not only for himself, but for others, a hand ready to support and share. The emotions that had long been buried were now revived, making him feel like an indispensable part of the community. Ultimately, Jake's story concluded with a powerful message. They showed that through perseverance and solidarity, any challenge could be overcome. They cultivated a living space filled with love and hope, not just for themselves, but for future generations. The Freedom Garden became a symbol of a legacy not just of flowers, but also of community strength, a bright flame glowing in the hearts of all. Let us cherish and nurture this precious gift, for there is nothing unattainable if we strive together. When Jake returned home from a business trip, an odd sensation welled up within him as he walked through the gate leading into the garden he had painstakingly cultivated. The atmosphere before him felt familiar, yet something was amiss as he caught sight of the newly erected fence encircling his house. The rough, tall wooden planks obstructed his view of the garden, making everything feel suffocating and closed off. Jake felt as though he were living in a cramped apartment rather than in a home, a place he had hoped would become a sanctuary of peace. This action by the Homeowners Association HOA was not merely a technical regulation. It struck at the very core of Jake's sense of ownership. He did not just see the wooden slats. He felt the invasion, the encroachment of an organization wholly unrelated to him. The veteran felt tense and indignant, as if the battles from the war continued to haunt him. But now it was a different struggle, a fight to reclaim his privacy and freedom. Overwhelmed with anger, Jake stood there staring at the fence, flooded with memories of the painful moments when his friends had departed forever. Resisting the urge to succumb, he resolved not to let himself fall into a state of helplessness. The freedom he had found after returning from the war now felt like a flickering ghost. Time and again he realized that the imposition of rules had not been based on collaboration and consensus. It was a form of unilateral power that he could not accept. Jake began to take the first steps to resist the oppression of the HOA. He not only sought to reclaim his living space, but also aimed to garner support from neighbors who might be facing similar pressures. Instead of merely sitting back and fuming, he approached the window and began to jot down the inconsistencies in the HOA's regulations that he had researched, hoping that his sharp words might spark a sense of awareness within the community. He delved into the HOA's bylaws, searching for details and regulations that could assist him in this matter. Each line he read provided him with encouragement, acting as a mental weapon in the battle he was about to undertake. Furthermore, he recalled the lessons learned on the battlefield, the perseverance and spirit of camaraderie. Jake decided to organize a neighborhood meeting where he could motivate his fellow residents to stand up together. That scene would not merely be a casual gathering. It would mark the beginning of a revolution in the neighborhood where people would no longer feel isolated in the face of unreasonable regulations. He initiated the distribution of flyers, organized conversations with neighbors to explain their rights, and brought attention to the HOA's regulations. As word about the meeting spread, he received the support of several enthusiastic neighbors, who also shared the sense of loss regarding their privacy and respect in their living spaces. On the day of the meeting, the atmosphere in the room was tense yet vibrant. Serious faces collaborated discussing strategies to combat the oppression of the HOA. People shared their personal stories, the distress of the rules complicating home decoration and gardening. From there, a sense of solidarity emerged, and everyone eagerly mapped out their strategies for resistance. Jake could feel the enthusiasm in each participant, and the unity helped him regain faith in the future. In the following weeks, the situation intensified as the HOA began to send further warning letters about violations. These letters felt like bullets piercing Jake's mind, but rather than deterring him, they only added fuel to the fire of his determination. He knew there had to be a way to make the voices of the neighborhood heard, to prove that they were not just victims of vague regulations, but also guardians of their own living spaces. Jake was determined not to stand alone. He organized additional meetings where neighbors would not only be educated about their rights, but also motivated and encouraged to construct a strong resistance together. He understood that solidarity was strength, and in order to achieve that, they needed to apply pressure on the HOA. He proposed organizing a small protest in the area to attract attention from the media and local bloggers, which could create greater pressure on the HOA. When this idea was presented, excitement spread throughout the room, with neighbors promising to participate and affirming their readiness to stand by one another. The flame of resistance had ignited, and Jake no longer felt alone in this struggle. As time progressed, the protest unfolded with joy, neighbors standing together holding banners, expressing their love for their living spaces. Under the sunlight, the smiles and cheers, amidst a small neighborhood, painted a beautiful picture of the power of unity. News of the protest quickly caught the media's attention, and the beautiful photos along with moving stories were rapidly shared across social networks. Jake realized that what they were doing was not just about resisting the oppression of the HOA, Moreover, they were forging a movement for positive change within the community. The media attention propelled their struggle beyond what Jake had ever imagined. Step by step, the voices of Jake and the community began to resonate, not just as a call for resistance, but as a powerful message about freedom and independence within the community. They were no longer isolated individuals behind barriers, but a strong collective with a shared goal to safeguard their interests. Feeling that they were on the brink of victory, Jake decided to utilize the materials he had gathered to sue the HOA. It was a bold move, but it was time for his voice to be heard. He recognized that although the battle would be challenging, it was time for the law to take effect. His fight was not merely personal. It was deeply ingrained with responsibility toward the community. Jake collected evidence and strategized for his case. He felt that he was facing a new battle, a legal battle. Yet now there was no shadow of solitude. With support from the neighbors, he felt confident moving forward, ready for the legal confrontation. He knew that, regardless of where this fight led them, the most important aspect was that when they stood up together, everything could change. The battle was not just about defeating the HOA. It was a journey of discovering the power of community and individual freedom. It was a fight carrying an indelible significance that people have the right to protect their living spaces by any means necessary. Jake and his neighbors were not just struggling to reclaim their rights, they were building a platform for future generations. They would no longer be alone. Jake did not want to simply accept every new regulation imposed by the HOA. He decided that he needed to take a bold step, a strategy, not only to protect his own interests, but also to help his neighbors realize the power of unity. He began planning to hold informational meetings at his home. The goal of these meetings was to provide residents with clear information about their rights, as well as how the HOA had abused its power. Jake meticulously prepared for the first meeting. He created handouts, charts, and images that clearly depicted the HOA regulations he deemed excessive. He also gathered opinions and stories from other neighbors who had been troubled by the HOA. He wanted to turn the meeting into an opportunity, not only to listen, but also to create a strong, common voice. When the meeting took place, many neighbors appeared hesitant. They feared that if they spoke out, the HOA would retaliate. But as Jake began to share his story, these concerns gradually faded. He not only recounted how the fence had encroached upon his life, but also highlighted the troublesome and unreasonable regulations the HOA had instituted. He emphasized that their right to live in a free and happy space was being threatened. The response from the neighbors was surprising. Those who had once been close friends unexpectedly began to express their feelings and their own stories. An elderly lady, Mrs. Wilson, cried as she recalled how the HOA had demanded she remove the flower pots she had tended for over 2 decades. Under Jake's leadership, a spirit of unity was beginning to emerge. People started to understand that it was not just Jake who was fighting. Many others were also enduring oppression from the HOA. Several subsequent meetings took place with large attendance from residents. From those who had never known each other, they became friends, discussing sharing and finding solutions to the problems created by the HOA. Jake noticed that a remarkable strength was forming from their collective voices. He began to recruit those willing to join in the campaign to protect their rights, but the HOA did not remain idle during this time. As soon as they realized the community was awakening, they intensified their threats. Warning letters from the HOA were sent to each household like chilling winds. The contents were laden with intimidation, warning that involvement in activities against the HOA could lead to serious legal repercussions. They even emphasized that those engaging in such activities could lose certain privileges or find themselves isolated in their relationships with other members of the community. Jake remained undeterred. He understood that fear could only strengthen his fighting spirit and that of his neighbors. He decided not only to react spontaneously but to implement a more strategic approach. He asked everyone to document the incidents, the letters they received, and the impacts on their daily lives. After collecting a comprehensive set of records, Jake planned a small protest. He wanted the community to demonstrate their solidarity not only to the HOA but also to the media. He knew that if they could not apply the right pressure, the HOA would continue to disregard them. The protest turned out to be more boisterous than Jake had imagined. Neighbors from all over gathered, bringing cheerful signs and bright, determined eyes. No longer did they worry about threats from the HOA. Instead, they felt part of a small revolution. Depending on their personalities, some chose to stand silently by the fence while others were bolder, chanting slogans like, "Our rights to live are inviolable." All eyes were directed toward the HOA office as if it were remote control, a metaphor for reclaiming power. The local newspaper noticed this event and sent a reporter to cover it. The images and stories they captured created a wave of attention that Jake had never anticipated. Not only was the HOA watching, but other residents in the community also began to take notice. The presence of the press and bloggers attracted the attention of authorities. Jake's and his neighbor's story was no longer confined to neighborhood scale. It began to spread further, becoming a symbol of the struggles not only of one cluster of residents, but also of all those oppressed by unreasonable regulations. Jake realized that his battle was not limited to opposing the HOA. It was also a fight for freedom and the rights of all people. The spreading of the message inspired him even more, and before long he turned the fight into a lawsuit. Consequently, the story became more heated as lawyers joined the legal battle, and Jake prepared for a public showdown that could decide the future of the entire community. With every gust of wind, Jake felt increased strength and determination. He believed that he was not alone in this struggle. All his beloved neighbors were walking alongside him on this path. Through their relentless efforts, they would not only reclaim ownership, but also restore the heart and soul of their community. Jake Thompson stood amidst a beautiful sunny day, but his soul was in turmoil. Everything seemed to be against him. Since the Homeowners Association HOA had come into play, the peaceful life he longed for had been disrupted. The imposed decisions and incomprehensible regulations made him feel as if he was bound within the very home he had once cherished. However, he knew he couldn't just sit back and wait for things to resolve themselves. He was determined to take action. The idea of organizing a small protest in the neighborhood sprang to his mind like a beacon of hope, a way to express his aspirations and simultaneously spark community spirit. Jake made a list of neighbors he had encountered, those who shared his concerns about the HOA. He decided to invite them to join him in this fight, not just for his own sake, but for the collective good of the entire community. He began planning a gathering aimed at attracting public attention. In the days that followed, Jake dedicated much of his time to studying the regulations imposed by the HOA. Every clause, every requirement was meticulously noted by him. He strived to understand what the HOA could do and what it could not do. From monitoring fences to landscaping requirements, everything became weapons in his arsenal. He was preparing not only for a legal battle, but also for a moral one against the community. When the first informational meeting was held, Jake felt anxious. But as his neighbors began to gather, that fear dissipated. They exchanged concerns about the frustrations the HOA had inflicted on their daily lives. Tense faces gradually transformed into determination. People realized they were not alone, and that there was someone brave enough to point out the issues. The meeting not only served as a platform for expressing opinions, but also evolved into a lively discussion about how they could collectively stand up against the HOA. Some shared personal experiences, while others recounted humorous stories about being overly reprimanded by the HOA. Laughter and unconditional support radiated throughout the room, creating an atmosphere brimming with hope. After the meeting, Jake realized he had not only ignited community spirit, but had also forged stronger bonds with his neighbors. They collectively committed to not being intimidated by the HOA, refusing to accept the authoritarian control that the organization sought to impose on them. The resistance was no longer Jake's alone. It belonged to the entire collective. However, the HOA did not remain idle. They knew that a protest could elicit negative reactions to their image. Therefore, as soon as they received information about Jake's plans, they promptly sent a series of warning letters emphasizing that organizing a protest would violate community regulations. This was the HOA's Achilles heel, as they inadvertently affirmed that this community needed protection. Jake, along with his neighbors, decided not to be subdued. The day of the protest arrived. The air was thick with tension, but the resolve of the people only served to strengthen the event. Jake summarized key points regarding the reasons for the protest before they took to the streets. The phrases, "We want freedom and no HOA controlling our lives," were clearly emblazoned on their banners. They stood together, symbolizing the power of unity and determination to resist. The protest drew the attention of local media reporters, and bloggers quickly documented the community's grievances, interviewing Jake and several other neighbors about their experiences. Their authentic stories, enthusiasm, and determination merged into a powerful voice that the HOA could not ignore. From this pressure, Jake realized that not just he, but the entire community had found a common voice. Pictures captured them standing together proudly, holding their banners, conveying a strong message about the struggle for personal rights and freedom. The media coverage intensified, making it increasingly difficult for the HOA to maintain its dominant position. After the protest, Jake decided to sue the HOA. He persuaded his neighbors to join him collectively, building an appeal file with ample evidence of the HOA's abuses of power. They spent weeks researching the regulations, gathering documentation, and contacting lawyers. Each passing day intensified their resolve in this fight. Eventually, Jake's perseverance paid off. The court ruled in his favor, ordering the HOA to pay a substantial compensation and cease all wrongful actions. Joy erupted in the hearts of Jake and his neighbors. They had gradually overcome every obstacle and failure. Their hearts overflowed with hope, not just for themselves, but for the entire community. As life returned to normal, Jake began to pursue a dream he had envisioned for a long time, creating a freedom garden, a place where community members could come together to grow plants, nurture nature, and connect with one another. This not only fostered a closer living space, but also created an environment for ongoing solidarity. Jake's struggle was not only victorious, but also left a legacy for all. In his mind and that of all his neighbors, the resurgence from adversity was the most valuable lesson about the power of unity and love. As time passed, Jake's struggle with the Homeowners Association, HOA, grew more intense than ever. The peaceful life he once longed for was now shattered by the very threat letters from the HOA. But Jake was not one to be easily defeated. He began to prepare for a fierce legal battle, fueled by an unwavering determination within. Thinking of the friends he had lost on the battlefield, he understood that he must stand up not only for himself, but also for his neighbors. He meticulously researched the HOA regulations and collected evidence of their potentially illegal actions. Through conversations with neighbors, he discovered that he was not alone in feeling uneasy. Most residents shared the same sense of being threatened and losing their privacy. After gathering enough information, Jake began to gear up for a legal fight. He sought advice from a lawyer specializing in disputes between residents and HOAs. The lawyer listened to Jake's story with interest, realizing that this was not merely a battle over vague regulations, but a fight for the rights of the community. Every evening, Jake sat at his desk studying documents, organizing information, and preparing a strategy. He sought examples from similar lawsuits where residents had stood up against HOAs and reclaimed their rights. With each page, Jake's resolve grew stronger. He was determined not only to break down the physical barriers erected by the HOA, but also to instill fear in them before the strength of a united community. When the time came to file the lawsuit, Jake organized a meeting with his neighbors to inform them of his decision. He encouraged them to participate, presenting evidence and detailed information about the fight he had prepared. No one expected that the threatening letters from the HOA could lead to a serious legal confrontation. Nevertheless, the solidarity of his neighbors made Jake feel more resolute than ever. The lawsuit was publicly declared. Jake knew that this could place additional pressure on the HOA, rendering them no longer an unseen force behind the walls. He reached out to local media, attracting attention from bloggers concerning community rights, as well as those who had experienced similar problems. A small protest was organized, sparking a powerful movement, expressing residents' dissatisfaction with how the HOA manipulated and controlled their lives. However, this campaign of support was never easy. The HOA quickly responded to the lawsuit with warning letters threatening to impose severe penalties if the residents did not cease their actions. But instead of backing down, Jake's momentum and that of his allies grew stronger. Neighbors became more determined to support him, coming together for meetings and discussions to prepare for what was ahead. The legal battle unfolded, and as days passed, Jake found himself increasingly entrenched in debates with the HOA in court. The courtroom became the arena where Jake, his neighbors, and the HOA presented their respective perspectives. In hearings, the positive events and evidence they gathered made Jake feel more hopeful than ever. Simultaneously, in those tense moments, Jake discovered himself. The conversations with his neighbors, which initially revolved around the legal struggle, opened up stories, memories, and a shared reason for their fight. They formed a bond, and step by step, it encouraged them to feel stronger. Months of conflict between the HOA and Jake culminated in tense court sessions. Eventually, the court rendered a decision. With clear evidence and support from the community, the ruling was in favor of Jake. This decision was not just a victory for him as an individual, but also a triumph for all the residents in the area. Not only was the HOA required to compensate for their wrongful actions, but they also had to cease the irrational regulations they had imposed. Jake felt an overwhelming joy upon hearing the verdict. He looked at his neighbors, seeing the smiles of happiness and pride on their faces. More than a legal victory, this brought Jake a gift more precious, the gift of freedom. He decided that he would not stop at reclaiming his living space. He also wanted to build a place where the entire community could enjoy, together. The Freedom Garden was born from this endeavor, standing as a testament to the power of unity and courage in confronting manipulators of authority. With the help of neighbors, Jake began to plant flowers and trees, creating a shared space for residents. The garden became not only a place for them to gather and relax, but also a symbol of what they had endured and what they had achieved. They proved that nothing could withstand the power of determination and solidarity. This was not merely a story about a man defending his home. It was a journey, a battle that all the residents had traversed together. Jake transformed struggle into strength and joy, creating a community where people would not just exist in isolation, but would thrive together and live better lives. They became a family, a united force against injustice, and the garden was not just a place for plants to grow, but also a space for nurturing the human spirit and compassion. Jake's struggle imparted a valuable lesson that in all hardships, if we persist and stand together, nothing is insurmountable. From adversity, they discovered their strength and resilience. The Freedom Garden emerged as a vibrant symbol of change, a legacy left not only for the current generation, but for the future. A place where everyone has the right to live, to love, and to be happy. Jake decided that it was time to rebuild his relationship with his neighbors, a relationship that had once been strained by tensions and conflicts with the HOA. He had once thought that war and solitude were the only ways to regain control of his life. But now he understood that strength comes not only from resistance but also from the power of kindness and unity. With this conviction, Jake began planning an event, the Freedom Garden Festival, where he invited all the neighbors to participate in creating a community garden. He skillfully utilized his organizational talents, compiling a list of engaging activities from planting flowers to small competitions and outdoor barbecues. Most importantly, Jake wanted everyone to have the opportunity to reconnect, thereby creating a space they could all be proud of together. When Jake announced the event through flyers on telephone poles and on neighborhood social media, he felt a mix of excitement and hope. He recalled the days spent in battle when friends beside him had sacrificed their lives, and he knew that nothing could separate them when they stood together for a common purpose. It was this spirit he sought to bring to his community. Jake's return home caught the attention of his neighbors. They began to follow his journey, and the previous rift was starting to mend. Some who had hesitated to connect with him before now felt a growing admiration and respect for him. On the day of the festival, dozens of families were present. The crowd was not just a group of people living on the same street. It was a community, a large family with diverse experiences and feelings. As Jake stood before the crowd, he felt overwhelmed with emotion. He didn't just see familiar faces. He saw light, a yearning for change, and a rising sense of mutual appreciation in the air. He began to share the reasons for organizing this event. He spoke of the importance of building an environment that nurtures not just themselves but also future generations. His words resonated like a call to action, inviting everyone to stand up and be a part of the effort to create a better life. Jake's life was no longer just about regaining control of his home. It was about transforming the memories and pains of the past into motivation for change in the future. Each flower planted would symbolize vibrancy, the power of friendship and unity. Soon, activities such as planting and decorating the garden were in full swing. From children to the elderly, everyone contributed their strength and ideas. They chose plants and flowers that everyone loved together. Laughter erupted as children happily assisted the adults or even vied for the small charming pots. Each small moment added to the sense of connection within the community. As the sun gently rose higher, Jake witnessed his neighbors sharing life stories, dreams, and hopes. They enjoyed a barbecue feast with a diverse array of dishes, ranging from traditional foods to regional specialties, creating a unique culinary experience. At the festival, something delightful happened. An old neighbor of Jake's, an elderly woman named Margaret, offered to help him renovate his garden. He had no idea she was a skilled gardener. Others were inspired by her enthusiasm and love for the work, and they began to volunteer to help. Representatives from the HOA, after witnessing a successful and joyful festival, voluntarily joined in the activities. They recognized the strength of people coming together to collaborate and build. As Jake stood alongside them, he no longer felt any adversarial presence. He had wisely shown them that, rather than rigid regulations, cooperation and dialogue were the keys to sustainable development. At the conclusion of the festival, everyone gathered for a small ceremony to celebrate their renewed ties. They held hands and formed a large circle, singing a song about brotherhood together. The melody echoed in the blue sky, carrying a message of understanding, empathy, and love. Vibrant, colorful photos from the event quickly spread across the social media. Jake had not only built a garden, he had created a living space filled with happy and familiar memories. He understood that these moments would endure in the hearts and souls of all the residents. As spring arrived, the Freedom Garden became a source of pride for the neighborhood. It was not just about planting flowers. The garden transformed into a gathering place for cultural and recreational activities. The community continued to flourish, and Jake's living space along with his neighbors became a testament to the power of unity. Jake, now not just a veteran returned from war, but also an informal leader of the community, realized that what he had achieved was not just home ownership, but the strong bonds between people and hearts. He no longer felt lonely during long afternoons. Instead, he felt the warmth and love from those around him. As the following days passed, Jake continued to host community meetups, and gradually he and his neighbors began to write a new chapter for the neighborhood. They proved that in solitude, no one is strong, but in unity the impossible becomes possible. The story of Jake Thompson is not just a solitary battle of a veteran. It stands as a vibrant testament to the power of unity and friendship within a community. When faced with challenges from the Homeowners Association, HOA, Jake sought not only to protect his interests, but also to inspire those around him. With each step on his journey, he touched upon issues many often grapple with, from feelings of loneliness to confusion about safeguarding their living space. Every time he read a report from the HOA, the frustration within him grew. The threatening letters and unreasonable demands evoked a sense of siege. Yet little did he anticipate that those letters would spark a bond between him and his neighbors. From his criticism and frustration, Jake's anxiety connected him with like-minded friends. Together, they faced their fears and sought solutions, thus forging a more united community than ever before. The collaboration between Jake and his neighbors led to meetings where they shared insights about HOA regulations and their rights. This interaction not only enhanced their understanding of processes and laws, but also created a safe space for everyone to voice their concerns and ideas. Through this, they realized they were not alone in their struggle, and that every small voice had value. Regular meetings gathered many residents from the neighborhood. They discussed and investigated the inconsistencies in the HOA's regulations. It was here that Jake emerged as a leader, not only in his fight for his rights, but also as a beacon of hope for the entire community. He welcomed participation from all, regardless of age, profession, or circumstance, knowing that only unity could combat the power of the HOA. A strong sense of mutual support surged within the community. Neighbors became not just friends, but companions, sharing hopes and dreams for a peaceful living environment. As Jake saw familiar faces attending the meetings, warmth flooded his heart. This became a tremendous motivation for him, enabling him to overcome the obstacles that the HOA had set. In those moments, Jake realized that hardships, whether great or small, could never weaken the will of a closely knit community. Neighbors no longer viewed one another as mere people living next door. They had become part of a larger family. Together, they built meaning into their lives, not just for themselves, but for generations to come. Eventually, the meetings culminated in organizing a small-scale protest in the area. Sarah, a young and passionate neighbor, proposed this idea, and Jake quickly agreed. They drafted invitations to the entire community, drawing not only media attention, but also igniting courage and determination in each individual. The protest was a resounding success. A stream of people joined hands waving flags with the message, "Protect our home." No longer were there whispers of worry. Instead, there were powerful chants that clearly expressed their determination to defend their living space. Local media captured images of the protest, and though it wasn't a grand revolution, it was a significant victory in the hearts of the participants. Seeing neighbors stand together on the front lines, Jake felt an overwhelming joy fill his heart. He understood that what he was doing was not just for himself, but for the entire community. The support from those around him created an unstoppable force. It was a powerful message sent to the HOA that they could not simply decide the fate of this community without considering the voices of the residents living there. As a dark cloud began to dissipate, rays of hope started to shine through. Neighbors stood not only together in meetings, but found joy in shared activities. They organized small parties, park walks, or simply enjoyed weekly tea gatherings. This connection not only helped them cope with external pressures, but also made their daily lives richer and more meaningful. As time passed, due to their efforts and spirit of solidarity, Jake and the community began to see positive changes, not only in their relationship with the HOA, but also in their own perceptions. They were no longer mere individuals living next to each other in a neighborhood. They had become an inseparable part of each other's lives. Then, when the legal battle finally ended with a favorable verdict for Jake and his neighbors, they reclaimed not only their right to live, but also built a space filled with love and connection. More than just a garden. This was the Garden of Freedom. They had constructed together a place where everyone could find peace, where their living space was cherished, and where friendship and unity would be nurtured eternally. Through all the struggles, the residents recognized that they were no longer alone. Their mutual support had become the guiding light that helped them overcome every challenge. With each small success, their belief in the power of community solidarity became more resilient. They were not merely individual residents, but a strong, united community, always ready to support one another. In the end, the story of Jake and his neighbors is not just a lesson in perseverance and steadfastness, but a clear message about the strength of humanity and unity. In the face of adversity, it is the support from the community that will provide the significant strength they need to get through every trial. They discovered happiness not only in protecting their homes, but also in creating profound relationships, a large family outside their own shelter. Challenges will come and go, but friendship and unity will always remain. Jake and his neighbors have shown that if they stand strong together, they can overcome any obstacle, creating a living space not only for themselves, but also for future generations, where the meaning of connection and love can blossom like radiant flowers in the Garden of Freedom. When the community around Jake expressed dissatisfaction with how the Homeowners Association, HOA, had implemented its regulations, a tense atmosphere emerged. The troubles in the relationship between residents and the HOA had lingered for far too long, and now it was time for a change. The HOA president, Ms. Karen, recognized that her policies and regulations might have been too rigid, and that a more nuanced perspective on the current situation was needed. A meeting was organized with the aim of hearing the voices of the residents, something Ms. Karen had neglected in the past. The meeting took place at the community center, drawing a large turnout of families from the area. Ms. Karen's face revealed her anxiety. She knew she had to face criticism and differing opinions from the residents. However, with an open spirit and a desire for change, she decided to start by listening to the residents' feedback. "We really need to talk to each other," she began in a gentle but firm tone. "I know there are many things wrong with the way the HOA has operated. Today, I want to hear what you all have to say. I want to understand better what your daily lives are like." Jake sat in the front row, listening to Ms. Karen speak. He had thought about this, the need to create a space where people could voice their opinions and share their thoughts without fear of punishment or judgment. Jake felt that this could be the beginning of a revolution in the area. After Ms. Karen concluded her brief speech, residents began to stand up boldly to express their thoughts. A young mother with 2 small children spoke up, "We want a space for the kids to play without being constrained by regulations. Why can't we have a small playground within the grounds close to our homes?" Another resident, an older man, added, "We shouldn't be bound by rigid rules. We simply want to live in a community where everyone feels comfortable and free. Instead of rigid walls, let us build a more connected environment." Each voice from the community rang out like a symphony, blending together, reflecting people's yearning for a less pressured and more connected life. Jake felt he was no longer alone in this struggle, and those around him were all supporting a brighter future. As the meeting progressed, more constructive opinions emerged. One woman proposed regular meetings between the residents and the HOA. We should meet regularly to discuss the issues our community is facing. Only when people interact can we make sound and reasonable decisions. Week after week, such meetings became routine. Ms. Karen and the board members began to change how they operated, opening their doors to all opinions from residents. They listened and discussed together, working to ensure that regulations aligned with the reality and needs of the community. Over time, a trustworthy and growing relationship between the HOA and the residents gradually formed. Before long, the HOA organized a large community meeting aimed at developing a plan to improve the living space for all residents. The residents eagerly participated, contributing creative ideas for the area. They began to see their roles not just as tenants, but as active participants in building the community. Activities such as festivals, picnics, and sports competitions between families were held regularly. Friends and neighbors gradually became an essential part of their daily lives. Now, the stories shared were not just about the HOA's mistakes, but also about growth and memorable experiences in life. Looking back, Ms. Karen became more aware of the benefits that social interaction brought. She began to see the HOA not just as a managing organization, but as a bridge that helped people connect and become part of a shared home. Openness and collaboration helped transform the HOA's image in a more positive direction, making it a strong support force for every resident, rather than just a powerful organization that people had to comply with. Jake, witnessing this change, felt immense joy in his heart. He had truly achieved what he wanted to restore freedom and peace for himself and his community. The flowers in the Freedom Garden not only symbolized beauty and growth, but also served as a clear testament to the strength of unity and humanity. Jake's story did not just end here. It opened a new chapter in the lives of every resident in the area. The positive changes from the HOA rekindled hope and faith in everyone that with cooperation and openness, every problem could be resolved and every difficulty could be overcome. They had officially left behind unnecessary disputes and together built a strong community where everyone could contribute, create, and live happily. Thus, the changes from Jake's struggle not only benefited him, but also provided a valuable lesson about a transformation and growth within a community. The residents would continue to walk together on the journey of creating an ideal living space where every voice and opinion could be heard and respected, the Freedom Garden. A symbol of the power of unity is not merely a plot of land that has been revitalized, but also a repository of cherished memories, and a bridge connecting the residents within the community. Over time, it has evolved into a thriving space, an inseparable part of everyday life. The vibrant flowers and lush green trees not only add color to the neighborhood, but also create an ideal meeting place where people come together to share, learn, and grow. The establishment of this garden has played a crucial role in renewing the relationships between neighbors. Amidst the sounds of cheerful laughter, sincere conversations, and friendly handshakes, it seems that everyone has forgotten their past disagreements. People have begun to recognize the value of connection, that a strong community is not only built on strict regulations, but also relies on trust and mutual support. Every weekend, the garden transforms into a vibrant event space where activities such as tree planting, gardening workshops, and even art exchanges occur regularly. Children in the neighborhood delight in running and playing among pathways adorned with splashes of colorful flowers. Parents gather to discuss future plans and brainstorm new ideas to develop the community. This togetherness appears to have become one of the most significant highlights of this small piece of land. Festivals have also become an indispensable highlight. During every festival, residents come together to participate in games, savor traditional delicacies, and share success stories from this garden. Gone is the sense of solitude. They have collectively forged a new horizon where everyone feels valued and heard. The Freedom Garden is not merely viewed as a charitable endeavor or a trivial task. It has become a vibrant part of the community's culture. Diverse cultural and sporting activities organized regularly help inhabitants not only enhance their health, but also strengthen their sense of unity. Outdoor concerts, film screenings, and sports competitions present wonderful opportunities for neighborhood residents to mingle and relieve daily stresses. Furthermore, the sustainability of the garden has instilled a strong awareness of environmental protection. Residents have come together to learn about organic gardening, water-saving irrigation techniques, and the preservation of native plant species. They understand that even small actions can yield significant benefits for the whole community. The garden is no longer just a place to enjoy life. It serves as a model for other areas on how to cultivate and protect sustainable living spaces. The development of the Freedom Garden over time has also inspired a new motivation within Jake. He is not only a planner, but also a leader who inspires those around him. From the challenges he has faced, Jake has extracted invaluable lessons. Change comes not only from perseverance, but also from the collective will of everyone involved. Looking back, Jake not only derives joy from witnessing people working together, but also feels happiness from creating meaningful values for the community. He has found peace in his soul, not only because of the garden, but also due to the strong relationships that have been built. He knows that his life has changed significantly since he chose not to remain passive and faced the challenges head-on. He clearly understands that every success is not just the result of individual efforts, but also the culmination of collective unity. Beneath the radiant golden sunlight, the garden is not just a living space, but also a symbol of human strength. The story has transcended conventional boundaries, touching the hearts of every resident, making them realize that their strength lies in connection and mutual love. Jake and the community have not just created a garden, but have built a vibrant cultural legacy where each individual can contribute and find joy, much like flowers blooming in the morning sun. The Freedom Garden has become a highlight not only for the community, but also for the surrounding area. Many visitors come to learn about Jake's story and how the residents fought together for a better living space. They see not only the beauty of the flowers and the serenity of the trees, but also hear the stories and valuable lessons stemming from the tireless efforts of a once challenged community. Each time visitors come by, Jake shares with them the moment when the community stood up to defend their rights, recounting the warning letters from the HOA and how they turned storms into tranquility together. Those stories are not just memories. They provide ongoing strength for the community. When he sees children playing, elderly people seated on benches chatting, and the lively outdoor gatherings filled with laughter, Jake knows he has done right. He has found a way to restore connections among the people, and the garden has become a symbol of that. These efforts yield success not just for individuals, but for the collective, embodying the greatest significance that Jake could achieve. The Freedom Garden continues to flourish and spread waves of positivity around, enabling everyone to understand that even in moments of hardship they can overcome challenges and build a brighter future for themselves and generations to come. Sarah, one of the younger residents, dares to envision expanding this model beyond the neighborhood, hoping that the values they have built can reach further, igniting a spirit of unity and love in other places. Thus, from an unanticipated struggle, Jake and his community have created a symbol of life, a belief that they can fully take charge of their lives and write new chapters in the vast garden of existence. This process does not cease after legal victories. It opens new opportunities, new wonders, and never-ending growth, not just for Jake, but for the entire community. They have demonstrated that the strength arising from solidarity and perseverance knows no bounds, and nothing can stop them on the path to building a better life. The Freedom Garden. A space that Jake and the community have built together is not merely a vibrant green area filled with flowers and plants. It has become a symbol of the strength of unity and the spirit of freedom. Each time the locals step into this garden, they not only feel a closeness to nature, but also the warmth of friendship and sharing. It is a place where people gather, exchange ideas, work together, and enjoy the fruits of their labor that they have diligently cultivated. The positive transformation brought about by the Freedom Garden has spread throughout the community. Fairs, concerts, and sports events have begun to emerge where the residents participate not only for entertainment, but also to connect with one another. Such occasions are gradually becoming an integral part of their lives, making the atmosphere more vibrant and meaningful than ever. When gazing upon the joyful and happy faces of one another, no one remembers the tensions and conflicts of the past. Everyone looks forward together, no longer limited by the vague regulations from the Homeowners Association HOA, but instead creating their own regulations and agreements driven by their collective will. From vibrant discussions to planning for the future, everyone feels that they truly have a voice and can contribute to the development of this living space. The Freedom Garden holds significance not only materially, but also evokes cherished memories. Children now have a place to play, run, and explore the world around them without the concern of being supervised by anyone. They can freely unleash their creativity in a safe space where parents can sit and converse with each other. With the growth of the community, the HOA has also begun to change. Through positive feedback from residents, the HOA president, who was once the cause of much tension, has now become a positive part of the area's activities. He has started to hold regular meetings where everyone can contribute their opinions and collectively build new regulations fairly. This has not only increased trust between residents and the HOA, but has also made the ideal of a cohesive community clearer than ever. Journalists and bloggers who had followed Jake's struggle and that of other residents have now also participated in events documenting success stories and sharing them across media platforms. From a heart-wrenching lawsuit, their story has become a source of inspiration for many other communities across the nation. Articles and videos about the Freedom Garden and how the residents overcame difficulties have garnered attention and enthusiasm from various places. The legacy of this place extends beyond flowers and greenery. It encompasses valuable lessons about perseverance, friendship, and compassion. Future generations will have a place to learn where they can nurture their talents and passions in a safe and encouraging environment. They will understand that challenges are just a part of life, and with each other's support, anything is achievable. Jake, a former soldier burdened by the ghosts of his wartime past, has found a new flame in life. He is not just the guardian of the Freedom Garden, but has also become a leader, a friend, and a role model for many. He has realized that happiness does not solely come from achieving personal desires, but also from helping others attain a better life. Each morning, as the first rays of sunlight shine down upon the garden, Jake feels a profound sense of gratitude. He knows that life is not just a series of personal battles, but a collective struggle. And on this journey, he and the community have built not just a garden, but a bright future for generations to come. They will continually strive to preserve and develop this living space, making it a place filled with love, creativity, and strength. The seeds they have sown will bloom not only in the form of flowers, but also through the strong bonds forged between people and between humans and nature. The Freedom Garden will always stand as a testament to the power of unity and hope. In times of difficulty, they will remember this struggle, and from it resolve to protect themselves and the things they cherish. They know that, despite any challenges that may arise, as long as they stand together, nothing is insurmountable. Jake's story and that of his community has become a shining example for many others, affirming that with perseverance and solidarity, any challenge can be overcome. They will not only continue to nurture the Freedom Garden, but will also build even greater dreams for the future, creating opportunities for themselves and for future generations. And thus their journey continues with seeds of hope being sown, new dreams being nurtured, and fresh successes awaiting. They understand that life is a precious gift, and they will not allow anyone or anything to disrupt their happiness and peace. They will cherish their values, develop unceasingly, and live together with all the love they possess. The Freedom Garden, where Jake and the residents came together to build, is not merely a green space, it has become a symbol of the power of unity. Each blooming flower, every leaf, fluttering in the breeze, carries stories of hardships endured, of resilience, and relentless efforts of those who stood up against the pressures of the HOA. As time passed, the Freedom Garden not only dazzled with its vibrant colors but also transformed into a gathering place for families, friends, and other residents. Cultural and sporting events are held regularly, from weekend picnics to annual flower festivals, attracting a large turnout from the community. These beautiful memories mark a significant transformation of the community, evolving from a group of strangers into one large family. Jake could feel this positive change in every activity. He often found himself sitting with neighbors under the warm sunlight, sharing stories, dreams, and hopes for the future. They no longer felt shy or fearful about expressing their opinions before anyone. People learned from each other and worked together to cultivate the garden, creating personal spaces where everyone could freely express themselves and contribute to the community. Neighbors were no longer just people living next to each other. They became friends, teammates, and companions, weathering the storms of life together. When someone encountered difficulties, everyone was ready to lend a helping hand. Meetings were not only about discussing regulations but also occasions to share life experiences, from planting trees to parenting. The sense of community bonding was what made Jake the happiest. The HOA president, Karen, also experienced positive changes after these upheavals. Recognizing the strength of unity within the community, she decided to hold regular meetings with residents to listen to their opinions and use that feedback to amend regulations. The interaction and dialogue between the HOA and the residents made everything more transparent. Regulations were no longer intangible rules. They became agreed upon and respected by everyone. Beyond a place to live, the garden became a symbol of freedom, a space where people could set aside daily worries to seek inner peace. Every gathering held here brought laughter, tears of joy, and unforgettable memories. Families came together cooking, playing, and climbing high trees to pick sweet fruits. Everything felt more vibrant than ever before. Moreover, the Freedom Garden served as a natural educational environment. Children in the area learned to love nature and understood the importance of caring for and protecting the environment. They didn't learn solely from books, but through hands-on experiences like planting seeds, watering them, and nurturing each tiny life. Values such as empathy, responsibility, and love were nurtured through these simple experiences. Furthermore, the Freedom Garden opened doors for new ideas. Many residents began participating in small projects such as organizing art classes or workshops on health and nutrition. These gatherings not only brought knowledge, but also inspired everyone in the community, encouraging them to develop themselves in new ways. Jake was not just a leader, but also a friend and a mentor. He frequently organized garden care days where everyone could participate, learn, and cultivate together. The conversations and lessons on plant care not only helped individuals improve their skills, but also forged strong connections among residents. Each small lesson contributed to building a robust and loving community. Above all, the Freedom Garden has become a place where people can rediscover themselves. Residents not only rekindled their love for nature but also found the value of connection, compassion, and empathy. They were no longer alone in life, but rather they looked towards a bright future together, where everyone could contribute a small part to build something wonderful. Jake realized that the struggle he once fought was not just a battle against the oppression of the HOA. It was a journey of self-discovery, seeking joy and true happiness. He felt he lived with a newfound purpose, and this made him feel more fulfilled than ever. With each passing day, he not only tended to the garden, but also nurtured the community. witnessing how people connected, grew, and flourished. Ultimately, the Freedom Garden is not just a material legacy, it is a spiritual one. It stands as a testament to the power of humanity, the ability to overcome challenges, and the importance of solidarity. Jake and his community have proven that as long as they build together, share, love, and support, every challenge can be overcome and the future will open doors to brighter opportunities.